I started hearing the footsteps on a Tuesday. That part I'm sure about because Tuesdays were my late days at the clinic, and I'd gotten home around 9:30, microwaved a bowl of leftover pasta, and eaten it standing at the kitchen counter while scrolling through my phone. The apartment was quiet. It was always quiet. I'd been living alone for about 7 months by then, since Priya moved out, and I'd mostly gotten used to the silence, or at least stopped noticing it. The building was old, a 3-story walk-up in Bridgeport, on the south side of Chicago. My unit was on the 2nd floor. Below me was Mrs. Nowak, who was 70-something, and watched Polish game shows at a volume that could rattle my floorboards. Above me was a unit that had been empty since before I moved in. Or at least I'd never heard anyone up there. That night, I was brushing my teeth and I heard it. Footsteps. Not from below. Not from the hallway. From inside my apartment. A slow, deliberate sequence of steps, maybe 6 or 7, moving from somewhere near the living room toward the front door. I turned off the faucet and stood there with toothpaste foam running down my chin. I listened. Nothing. I walked out of the bathroom and looked down the hallway toward the living room. The lamp by the couch was still on. The TV was off. The front door was closed and locked. I checked the deadbolt, the chain. I looked in the coat closet, which was the only place anyone could realistically hide. Empty. I went back to the bathroom, finished brushing my teeth, and went to bed. I told myself it was the building. Old pipes, settling wood, whatever. It was February, and the radiators made all kinds of noises. The next night I heard it again. Same time, roughly late, after I'd turned in. I was lying in bed, not quite asleep, and there they were. Footsteps, slow, unhurried, like someone walking through my apartment with total confidence. Like someone who lived there. They started somewhere near the kitchen and moved toward the front door. Then they stopped. I sat up. I didn't turn the light on. I don't know why. I just sat in the dark and listened to the silence that followed. After maybe 2 minutes, I got up, walked to the front door, and checked the lock. Still bolted. Still chained. I walked through the apartment, kitchen, bathroom, living room, the small second bedroom I used as a home office. Nothing. Nobody. I stood in the kitchen for a while, leaning against the counter. The building was old. Sound traveled strangely through old buildings. Maybe what I was hearing was Mrs. Nowak shuffling around downstairs. That made sense. I drank a glass of water and went back to bed. The 3rd night, it happened again. And the 4th. And the 5th. Always late. Always the same patterned footsteps that began somewhere in the middle of the apartment and moved toward the front door. Always slow. Always measured. By the weekend, I was sleeping badly. I'd lie in bed and listen for the footsteps, and when they came, I'd tense up. And when they stopped, I'd lie there for another hour trying to convince myself I hadn't heard them. On Saturday morning, I mentioned it to my friend Dustin over breakfast at a diner on Halstead. Dustin worked in HVAC. Building noises were basically his area of expertise. "What kind of footsteps?" he asked, pouring syrup on his pancakes. "Like someone walking through the apartment. Slowly." "Your building have radiator heat?" "Yeah. There you go. Hydronic system. When the boiler kicks on, the pipes expand. Makes a tapping sound. Rhythmic. Can absolutely sound like footsteps." "This doesn't sound like tapping, it sounds like someone walking." "Because that's what your brain wants it to be. You're lying in bed in the dark. Pipes tap, your brain says footsteps. They always go in the same direction. Doesn't matter. The pipes run in a specific path. The heat expands them sequentially, same direction every time." I wanted to believe him. I mostly did. I felt stupid for bringing it up. "You could record it," he said. "Put your phone on the counter overnight. If it picks up anything, you'll hear what it actually is." That seemed reasonable. That night, I set my phone on the kitchen counter, opened a voice recording app, and hit record. I went to sleep. 8 hours of audio. I scrubbed through it in the morning. Silence. The hum of the refrigerator, a distant siren around 1 a.m., more silence. Then, at 3:17 a.m., something. At first I thought it was just noise, but the microphone was in the kitchen, and what I was hearing was close, rhythmic, footsteps, quiet, almost gentle, like someone walking barefoot on hardwood. They moved past the phone, toward the front door. Then the sound of the deadbolt turning, the chain sliding, the door opening and closing. I sat on my bed and played it again and again. Someone had walked through my apartment and left through the front door at 3:17 in the morning. I went to the front door. The deadbolt was locked. The chain was on, exactly the way I'd left it the night before. I called Dustin and sent him the audio clip. He called back 10 minutes later. "Okay," he said. "That's weird." "Yeah, but it could still be you, right? Like you got up in the night, walked to the kitchen, went out to check your mail or something, and you don't remember. The deadbolt was locked in the morning, with the chain on, so you locked it when you came back in." "I don't sleepwalk, Dustin." Everybody says they don't sleepwalk. My cousin Kyle used to drive to a gas station in his underwear and buy Funyuns. Didn't remember any of it. That doesn't explain the locks. Sure it does. If you can walk, you can turn a lock. Sleepwalkers do complex things all the time. He was right that it was possible. People do things in their sleep they don't remember. And the alternative was what? That someone was entering my locked apartment, walking through it, unlocking the door from the inside, leaving, and then somehow relocking the deadbolt and replacing the chain from the outside. You can't put a chain on from outside, unless there was nobody leaving, unless it was me. That thought was almost worse. My name is Elliot Marsh. I'm 34, and I work as a veterinary technician at a small animal clinic on Archer Avenue. I give injections to nervous dogs. I hold down feral cats. I've cleaned up more blood and vomit than most people see in a lifetime. I deal in problems you can diagnose and fix. And what I was hearing on that recording didn't fit into any category I had. I went to Best Buy the next day and bought a cheap indoor security camera. Wise brand, $40. Night vision, motion-activated recording, phone app. I set it up on the bookshelf in the living room, angled to cover the hallway, the front door, and part of the kitchen. I tested it from different spots. In night vision mode, everything had that greenish-gray look, but you could see details: the doorknob, the coat rack, the edge of the kitchen counter. That night, I went to bed. I left the camera running. I woke up at 6:45 when my alarm went off. I grabbed my phone before I even got out of bed and opened the Wise app. There was one motion-triggered clip. Time-stamped 3:17 a.m. The hallway was empty. Then a figure appeared from the direction of my bedroom, moving slowly toward the front door. The figure was me. I was wearing the same t-shirt and boxers I'd gone to bed in. My eyes were open, but there was something wrong about the way I was moving. Not stiff, exactly, more like deliberate. Like each step was considered. I walked to the front door, reached out, turned the deadbolt, slid the chain, opened the door, and walked out. The door swung shut behind me. I watched it 3 times. Each time I felt the same hollow sensation in my chest, like I'd missed a step going down a staircase. That was me, unmistakably. My face, my body, my clothes. Walking out of my apartment at 3:17 in the morning. 23 minutes later, a second motion trigger. The door opened. I walked back in. Same pace, same deliberate steps. I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, slid the chain back on, and walked back toward the bedroom. But just before I turned to close the door, the camera caught my face at a slightly different angle, and my expression was different. Walking out, my face had been blank, neutral, relaxed, eyes open but vacant. Coming back in, there was something around my mouth. Not a smile. More like the start of one, the faintest muscular suggestion of satisfaction. That detail sat with me for the rest of the day. I called in sick to work. I spent the morning watching both clips over and over. In the first clip, my movements were smooth, not robotic, not zombie-like, just calm and purposeful. My eyes were open, but I wasn't looking around. I was looking straight ahead at the door, like I knew exactly where I was going. My arms hung at my sides. I didn't reach for shoes or a coat or keys. I just opened the door and walked out. In February, in my underwear, I made a doctor's appointment. The earliest opening was Thursday. I set the silent alarm again that night. 3 a.m. vibrating under my pillow. If I could wake up before it happened, I could catch myself in the act. At 3 o'clock, the alarm went off. I was in bed. Everything normal. I lay very still and watched the clock. At 3:12, something shifted. Not in the room, in me. A heaviness, like the air pressure had changed. My eyes wanted to close. My limbs went warm and thick. I fought it. I knew in a way that went past thinking that if I closed my eyes right now, I would get up and walk out of this apartment. I sat up, turned on the lamp, swung my feet to the floor. The heaviness passed. Slowly, reluctantly, like something letting go of a grip. I stayed awake until 4:30. In the morning, the camera showed no clips. I'd stopped it. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't, because now I knew there was a window somewhere between 3 o'clock and 3:20, when something tried to take over, and the only thing preventing it was consciousness. Thursday, I saw my doctor. Showed her the footage. Stress-induced parasomnia, she said, common enough in adults. She referred me to a sleep specialist and suggested I put a bell on the front door. Something to wake me up if I tried to open it. I bought a string of jingle bells at a craft store and hung them on the inside of the door handle. In the morning, the bells were on the floor. The string had been carefully removed from the handle and placed on the entry mat, coiled in a neat circle. The camera showed me leaving at 3:17 a.m. In the clip, I walked to the door, paused, lifted the bells off the handle, set them down gently, not dropped, set, with a kind of eerie precision, then unlocked the door and walked out. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the coiled string. I had removed them. In my sleep. Carefully, quietly, like I knew what they were for and didn't want them to work. That week, I bought a keypad deadbolt. The kind that requires a 4-digit code to open from either side. Muscle memory can turn a deadbolt, but a code requires knowledge. That was my thinking. I chose 7294, random. I didn't write it down anywhere except in an encrypted note on my phone. I installed it that afternoon and went to bed. The camera showed me getting up at 3:17. I walked to the front door, stood in front of it for maybe 30 seconds. Then I reached out and punched in 7294. No hesitation, no fumbling. I entered the code smoothly, like I'd done it 100 times. A code I had chosen that afternoon. A code I had used maybe 3 times to test the lock. I opened the door and walked out. I changed the code to 0853 the next day. That night, 3:17, same thing. First try. Effortless. I didn't change it again. I started tracking where I went instead. I painted the soles of my feet with washable red fabric paint before bed, thick enough to leave marks. In the morning, the camera showed the same 3:17 departure. I went to the front door and opened it. Red footprints, faded but visible on the pale linoleum of the hallway. Down the stairs, through the ground floor. Out the back exit into the alley. Left on 33rd Street, past the laundromat and the shuttered barber shop. Right on Morgan Street. Half a block down, the footprints stopped. Not faded, stopped. A final full print, left foot, and then nothing. It was in front of a house, a narrow brick 2-flat. Dark windows, small concrete porch, iron railing. The number on the door was 2137. I didn't recognize it. I'd never been to this block. I stood there in my slippers trying to feel something recognition, déjà vu. Nothing. Just a house. I took a photo on my phone and walked home. The property records were public. The house was owned by someone named Gerald Tomczak. That name meant nothing to me. Purchased in 1997. I searched him online and found almost nothing a mention in a neighborhood newsletter from 2011, a white pages listing. Late 60s. I had no connection to this person or this address, and yet every night something in me walked barefoot through freezing weather to stand in front of his house. I drove there during the day, sat in my car half a block away and watched. Brick, 2 stories, bay window, curtains drawn, a dark blue Buick in the driveway. Nobody came or went. I got out and knocked on the front door. Slow footsteps on the other side. The door opened about 4 inches, held by a chain. A man's face appeared in the gap. Mid-60s at least. Gaunt, deep-set eyes, thinning gray hair. He looked at me without expression. "Can I help you, Mr. Tomczak?" He waited. "My name is Elliot Marsh. I live a couple blocks away on Low Avenue. This is going to sound strange, but I've been having sleep issues. I have reason to believe I've been walking here in my sleep. To this house." His eyes were an unusually light blue, almost gray. They didn't blink as often as they should have. "I haven't seen anyone," he said. "You're sure? Late at night? Someone standing on the porch?" "I'm sure." "Okay, I'm sorry to bother you." He looked at me a moment longer. "I don't know you, Mr. Marsh." "I don't know you either. That's why this is strange. It is strange, he agreed. And he closed the door. Over the following nights, my episodes got longer. The first night I'd tracked it, I was gone about 20 minutes. Then 30, then 45. The time at the house kept increasing. One morning, I woke up with a smear on my right hand that smelled like damp concrete and rust. Basement air. I drove back to Morgan Street and looked at the front porch steps. There, on the edge of the bottom step, a streak of faded red paint from my feet. I'd gone up those steps. I knocked. The door opened the same 4 inches. "Mr. Tomczak, I found my footprints on your porch." He didn't say anything. "Last time you told me you hadn't seen anyone." A pause. "I said that, yes. But you have seen me." He considered this for a long time. "I've seen you standing on the porch 3, 4 times." "Why did you lie?" "I was hoping you'd stop." "I can't stop. I'm doing this in my sleep." "I know." "What do you mean you know?" "I know what sleepwalking looks like." He paused. "You're not the first." The hallway behind him was dark. A smell reached me through the gap, the same smell I'd washed off my hand. Damp and mineral and old. "What do you mean I'm not the first?" "Other people have come to this house the same way, over the years." "And you just watch them?" "What else would I do? Call the police? Wake them up?" I found that waking them is not a good idea. Something about the way he said that. Flat. Final. "Why not?" He didn't answer. "You should go, Mr. Marsh." He closed the door. I spent the next few days searching for any record of what he'd described. Other sleepwalkers, this neighborhood, this address. I went through digitized newspaper archives and public records. I found a short article in the Bridgeport News from 2004. A woman named Sandra Voss had been found on the 2100 block of South Morgan Street at 4 a.m. in her nightgown. She told police she didn't know how she'd gotten there. She lived on Halstead, 4 blocks away. I found her on Facebook. Sent a message explaining my situation. 4 hours later. "That was me. Are you going to the house?" I typed back, "Yes." 2137? Her response came immediately. "Don't go inside." I stared at the screen, then, "I don't think I'm going inside," and I just stand on the porch. A long silence. Then, "Can I call you?" Her voice was rough, alert. She sounded like someone who'd been waiting years to have this conversation. "How long?" she asked. "Almost 3 weeks." "Every night?" "Every night I'm in my apartment. If I sleep somewhere else, it stops." "Same. I set up a camera too. A DV camcorder. This was 2004. And there I was on the tape, walking out at 3 in the morning. 3:17? She paused. "I don't remember the exact time. Maybe. Why?" "It's always 3:17 for me. Every night. Exact. That's specific." "Yeah. I sleepwalked there for about 3 weeks," she said. "To the porch, standing there and coming back. Same as you. Then one night on the camera, I tried the front door. It was locked. The next night it wasn't." She stopped. "Sandra?" "I went inside. On the tape, I was gone almost 3 hours. I don't remember any of it. I woke up the next morning feeling like something had been taken out of me. Something heavy that I didn't know I'd been carrying. I felt lighter for a couple of days. Then the pull started again." "What did you do?" "I moved. Broke my lease, moved to Logan Square. It stopped." "But you still think about it?" "I have dreams, every couple of months. A staircase going down, narrow, wooden, old. And at the bottom there's a room. And in the room there's—" She stopped. "I always wake up before I reach the bottom." "There's a what?" "I don't know how to describe it. It's not a thing. It's like a space where something should be." We were both quiet. "The woman who lived there then," Sandra said. "Not Tomczak, there was an older woman. The day after I went inside, I went back and knocked, and she looked at me like she recognized me. She said, 'You already took what you came for,' and she closed the door." "What did that mean?" "I've had 20 years and I still don't know. I just know you should not be there when the door is unlocked." I thanked her and hung up. That Friday night, I went to bed dreading it as usual. The camera caught me at 3:17. Same departure. Same blank face going out. Same almost smile coming back. This time I was gone for an hour and 45 minutes. And when I checked the living room camera, there was something in the return clip that I had to watch 4 times. 4:58 a.m. I walked back in through the front door, and someone was behind me. A figure, shorter than me, standing just inside the doorway, very still, while I walked past toward the bedroom without turning around. The night vision rendered everything gray and grainy, and the figure's face was never visible, angled down or away at every moment. Dark clothes, slight build. It stood there 10 seconds, motionless, then stepped backward through the door. The door closed. I watched it, and something in my head just broke. Not dramatically, more like a wire snapping. One moment I was processing what I was seeing, and the next I had my thumb on the delete button. I didn't think about it. I didn't weigh the decision. I deleted the clip the way you slap a spider, pure reflex. The need for it to not be there anymore, for the screen to be empty, for the thing I had seen to not exist as a file on a server somewhere. The moment it was gone, the reflex drained out of me. I sat there holding the phone, and the full weight of what I'd done landed. The only evidence, gone, because I couldn't stand to have it on my phone for one more second. I went through the rest of that Saturday in a daze. Cleaning, laundry, groceries, going through the motions while the image of that figure played behind my eyes. Saturday night, I slept at Dustin's. Nothing happened. Sunday, I went back to my apartment. Sunday night, I set both cameras up. Locked every lock. Took the clonazepam my doctor had prescribed for the sleep specialist referral. I slept deeply. No clips, no sleepwalking. But when I woke up Monday morning, the coat closet door was open. I always kept it closed. And the vent cover on the baseboard near the kitchen, a rectangular metal grate over the heating duct, was slightly crooked. One corner lifted, fresh scratches on the paint. The clonazepam stopped the sleepwalking, but something was still happening. Tuesday night, clonazepam, deep sleep, no clips. But I woke briefly around 3 a.m. and heard something from inside the walls, a soft, irregular tapping. Not like pipes, like fingers on wood. It came from behind my headboard and lasted about 10 seconds. I called Sandra the next morning. "After you moved," I said, "after the sleepwalking stopped, did anything else happen? In your apartment?" Silence. "Why?" "Things are being moved. Small things. The camera doesn't catch it." "Elliot, move." "I need to understand." "No, you don't. I talked to someone else once. A man who stayed. He said the sleepwalking stopped, but things in his apartment kept shifting. He started having gaps during the day. Minutes he couldn't account for." "What happened to him?" "I don't know. His number stopped working." She let that sit. "Move, Elliot." That evening, I called Gerald Tomczak. His number was in the white pages. "Mr. Tomczak, it's Elliot Marsh." Silence. "I need to see inside that house." A long pause. "Come tomorrow. After dark. 9 o'clock. "Why after dark?" "It's quieter then." He hung up. I should not have gone. Everything in my rational mind told me not to go to a strange old man's house after dark because he wanted to show me his basement. But I'd been walking there every night without my permission. At least this way I'd be awake. Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. I parked out front. The house was dark except for a single yellow glow behind the ground floor curtains. I texted Dustin. "I'm at 2137 South Morgan. If you don't hear from me by 11 p.m., come here." He texted back, "What? Why are you there?" I got out of the car. The door opened before I knocked. Gerald Tomczak in a cardigan and slippers. He looked thinner than last time. "Come in." The smell hit immediately. Damp concrete, mineral, rust, and underneath, something organic like turned earth after rain, concentrated and stale. Spare interior, narrow hallway with floral wallpaper, living room to the left, a recliner, a television, a floor lamp, everything clean but frozen in place, like a room that hadn't been changed in decades. He led me to the kitchen without conversation. In the corner, next to the refrigerator, there was a door, heavier wood than the others, a padlock on it, hanging open. He opened it. Wooden stairs going down, narrow, old. Exactly what Sandra had described. He started down without explanation. I followed. The air got cooler with each step. The smell thickened. The bare bulb at the top lit the first few stairs and left the bottom in shadow. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, stone walls, exposed joists, smaller than the house's footprint. Water heater, boiler, pipes, then the far wall. There was a gap in the stone, not a doorway. A seam where two sections hadn't been joined, about 2 feet wide, 5 feet tall. Beyond it, darkness. Not absence of light density, like looking into deep water. The air coming through it was cold and carried that sweet mineral smell. It didn't feel like a draft. "What's on the other side?" I asked. "A room." "What's in the room?" Gerald looked at me. "I don't know what it is. Nobody's ever known. It's old. It was here before the house, before the street probably. And it makes people walk here. It draws them." "Why do you stay?" He didn't answer that directly. "I went in once, when I first moved here." "What happened?" "You sit down. Something is exchanged. You don't remember the exchange itself. What did it take from you?" He was quiet for a long time. My anger. I'd been an angry man my whole life. Fights, screaming. I went in, and when I came out, the anger was gone. Completely. It sounds good. It wasn't. Anger has a purpose. Without it, I couldn't push back against anything. I became passive. I lost people. He looked at the gap. "It doesn't take what you choose to lose." I stared at the darkness beyond the wall. The pull was there, not in my legs, but behind my sternum, a thread connecting me to the space. "If I don't go in?" The pulling continues, gets worse. The vent cover, the closet door, the tapping in the walls. "What does it want?" "I don't know." I believed him. He wasn't hiding an answer. He was living above something he couldn't explain, and 29 years hadn't changed that. I looked at the gap, and I thought about what I might lose. My grief, my loneliness. Those sounded like relief, but Gerald had lost something that sounded like relief too, and it had hollowed him out. What if it took my fear? Fear was the thing telling me not to go in. Without it, I'd walk through the gap willingly. I'd become someone who stayed. "You're not free to leave," I said. "Are you?" Something behind his eyes shifted, like a person behind glass. "You should go in, Elliot." "No." I turned and walked to the stairs. The pull intensified with each step, stretching in my chest, my throat, behind my eyes. My legs wanted to turn around. I climbed. By the time I reached the kitchen, I was shaking. Gerald followed me up and closed the basement door, put the padlock back on. "It'll be worse now," he said. "Now that you've been close. I'm leaving Chicago." He looked at me with something that might have been pity. "That might help." I left. Over the next 3 days I made arrangements. Broke my lease. Told work I was leaving. Called my mom and said I was coming to Columbus. The pull sat in my chest the entire time. During the day, I could push it aside. At night it pressed against my ribs. I loaded my car Friday morning, taped a note to the door for the landlord, turned off the lights. Before I left, I stood in the hallway and listened. The apartment was silent, not the silence of an empty room. I drove. South on the Dan Ryan, east on I-80. Around Gary, Indiana, the pull faded gradually, like a radio station losing signal. By the Ohio border, it was barely there. I arrived at my mom's house at 2 a.m., collapsed on my childhood bed and slept. No pull, no footsteps, no waking at 3:17, just sleep. I found a job at a veterinary clinic in Dublin, a suburb of Columbus. Found an apartment, new construction, no radiators, no old ductwork. Tapered off the clonazepam. Slept normally. For 3 weeks I thought it was over. Then Dustin texted. He'd been back at my old building to fix Mrs. Nowak's radiator. She mentioned she'd been having trouble sleeping. Getting up in the middle of the night, standing in her kitchen, disoriented. It had started around the time I moved out. The new tenant in my old apartment had told Mrs. Nowak she kept hearing footsteps at night, in the walls. A week later, Dustin sent a photo. He'd gone back to get a box of my things from the building's storage closet. The new tenant's door had been propped open, and he could see into the kitchen. The vent cover was off, completely removed. And underneath, pressed into the linoleum from below from inside the duct, was a mark. Like a handprint, but the fingers were too long, and there were too many of them. I didn't reply to his message. I live in Dublin, Ohio now. I sleep fine most nights. Normal job. Normal apartment. I'm building something that looks like an ordinary life. Last Tuesday, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. I was standing at my front door with my hand on the deadbolt. I went back to bed. I haven't checked how far Dublin is from Bridgeport.